If you're studying for the SAT and you're still memorizing vocabulary lists, you're wasting your time. In this video, I'm going to show you the two biggest SAT vocabulary mistakes and my 4-step system on how to solve every words and context question fast using real SAT examples. I'm Carson, and using these strategies, my students average a 140-point score increase on the SAT. Here are the two biggest vocabulary mistakes. Number one is memorizing hundreds or thousands of vocabulary problems to prepare. So if any of these images remind you of yourself reading flashcards or a dictionary, stop it, because I'm going to show you how to answer these without having to memorize hundreds of definitions. The second biggest mistake is stressing out over vocabulary. It's only about 4 questions on the exam, so if any of these images remind you of yourself stressing out over it, chill out, because I'm going to show you how to solve every vocab problem. Here's how to solve every vocab problem in 4 steps. You're going to want to go ahead and read the question, read the passage, predict your answer, and then confirm your answer. Let's practice with an official Practice SAT problem. The first step is going to be to read the question. On the SAT, there's 2 types of vocabulary questions. You're going to have ones that are more fill in the blank, or you're going to have ones like this one where it's an underlined word, but you approach both the same way. The second step is going to read the passage. When you read the passage, you want to look for the 4 clues. This is going to be the overall main idea of the passage, transitions used in the passage, a colon if it were used, and then strong words as well. So let's go ahead and do that. The following text is adapted from Nathaniel Hawthorne's 1837 story, Something Something. The main character, a physician, is experimenting with rehydrating a dried flower. At first, the rose lay lightly on the surface of the fluid, appearing to imbibe none of its moisture. So none is a strong word. Strong words are words with strong tone, so positive tone, negative tone, but also words that are a little bit extreme and change your idea about something. So in this case, none is pretty extreme. Soon, however, so however is going to be a transition. Transitions show how ideas relate to each other. This is a disagreeing transition, so we know that what came before, however, is going to conflict or disagree with the idea that comes after it. A singular change began to be visible. All right, so we found our underlined word. So in this case, for underlined words, you want to imagine if that word was never there. That's because the SAT will use a very common word in the passage, but use it in a very uncommon way. And this tends to trick students because singular most of the time it means one. But in this case, it's going to be used in a slightly different way. So it's best just to imagine that word's not even there for when you make your prediction. So a blank change began to be visible. The crushed and dried petals stirred and assumed a deepening tinge of crimson, as if the flower were reviving from a death-like slumber. So that's very strong language, reviving from a death-like slumber. So I'm going to take a look, because the third step is going to be to predict your answer, and you want to think what word would go into the blank or replace the underlined word. In this case, I know that in the beginning we have a flower that's not drinking any water, but or however a change happened, it revived from a death-like slumber. So in this case, my prediction would be a word like big, because we're describing the change. It would be a big change, right? And so I'm going to take that word and compare it to the answer choices for step 4. I want to take a look at which answer is closest to my prediction, big. So let's take a look at A, lonely. A lonely change? No, not really. In addition, big's pretty positive, so I'm looking for a positive word because this flower was dying, then a change happened, and it became alive, it revived. So I'm also going to be looking for a positive tone. B, a disagreeable. Once again, a little negative, but it wasn't a disagreeable change, and that doesn't align with my prediction big. An acceptable change. Okay, a little bit more positive, but still not quite as strong or positive as a big or significant change, and that's going to be the word that I'm looking for. D, an extraordinary change. Yep, that's absolutely it. It's very strong language that matches my prediction and fits the context incredibly well. So D will be the correct answer. If this method makes sense, I put the entire 4-step loop, 4-clue checklist, and 10 never-before-seen words and context practice problems into my 1-pager words and context SAT cheat sheet that you can download for free. The link is in the description in the pinned comment below. Let's go ahead and try this next problem that's going to be a little bit harder. The first step is going to be to read the passage, and in this case, we're going to have the ones where it's going to fill in the blank. type of vocabulary problem, but the strategy is the same. We're going to go ahead and read the passage and look for the 4 clues, the main idea, the colon, the transitions, and strong words. So let's go ahead and do that. Some foraging models predict that the distance bees travel when foraging will decline as floral density increases. Okay, so we have a strong word, decline. And we have a nice transition here, but. So it's a disagreeing transition again, meaning that what comes after but is going to disagree with the idea that came before it. But biologists Shalaja and Claire showed that bees' behavior is inconsistent with this prediction. So a strong word, inconsistent, so it doesn't match the prediction. If flowers in dense passages or patches are blank. What's important about this blank is that it's followed with a colon. So how colons work is that the idea before and after the colon will relate. And in this case, for vocabulary problems, the information that comes after the colon will describe what comes directly before the colon, which is our blank. So reading what comes after the colon will help us with our prediction. Bees will forage beyond patches of low species richness to acquire multiple resource types. So let's go ahead and use these clues to help us predict our answer of what would go into the blank. In this case, taking a look at the beginning, I'm going to try to get the main idea. The model predicts the distance bees travel when foraging will decline as floral density increases. Putting this in my own words, as there's more flowers around the bees, they'll travel not as far. But this is inconsistent with a prediction if flowers in dense patches are blank. And after the colon, bees will forage beyond patches of low species richness. So that's my big clue as to what definition should go into the blank. So in this case, this makes a lot of sense. If there's a bunch of flowers around bees, they typically won't go further to get flowers unless the patches are the same or of low species richness, which I guess would be like low diversity, I guess is what you would say for species richness. But let's go ahead and compare that to our answer choices for step 4. Since this is a harder vocabulary problem, we're going to need to use our vocabulary strategies. Number 1 is don't get rid of unknown words. So if you don't know what a word's definition is, that does not mean you should get rid of it. Because through process of elimination, we might know what the other 3 definitions are for the other 3 answer choices. And if we can find out whether they're wrong, we know to choose the unknown word. And if you're between 2 unknown words, pick the one that sounds the coolest and move on. Save that time for problems you have a higher % likelihood of getting right. So let's go ahead and use these strategies on this problem. Taking a look at A, I depleted. So that's not quite whatever our prediction was. So depleted doesn't match same or low diversity at all. In addition, we're saying that these are in dense patches. So if it's dense patches of flowers, it's likely that they're not depleted or running out of flowers. Homogeneous, we're gonna leave that. So maybe we don't know what that means. So we're gonna leave it alone using those SAT vocab strategies. Let's move on to C, immature. So in the case of flowers, immature would mean that they're not developed or fully grown. In this case, we don't really have any evidence that the problem is whether the flowers are developed or not, but rather whether they're the same type. In addition, they're in dense patches as well. So it's not going to be C. Dispersed. Dispersed is the opposite of what's going on in the passage. So remember, these are dense patches. So these dense flowers in dense patches are dispersed. Well, then they wouldn't be dense patches, would they? So it's not going to be D. So through process of elimination, we can choose B as the correct answer. In addition, homogeneous literally means same or low diversity. So it actually matches our prediction very, very well. And B will be the correct answer of this question. So use those strategies, work smarter, not harder. Here's a recap on how to solve vocabulary problems in 4 steps. 1, read the question. You're going to have 2 different types of questions on the test, underlined word, and then a fill in the blank, but you approach these vocab questions the same way. 2 is you're going to want to read the passage. Look for the 4 clues. Understand the main idea or what the passage was about. Look for transitions that tell you how the ideas relate to each other. Then look for a colon, because whatever comes after it describes what comes before it. Then look for strong words or words with strong tone, either positive or negative, or just influential words that change your idea about something. Then you want to go ahead and use these clues to predict your answer, which should be what you think the underlined word means or what should go into the blank. Then you want to solve or confirm your answer. You want to compare your prediction to the answer choices. And that's how you solve vocab problems on the SAT. Want to achieve your dream SAT score? Here's your next step. Click the link in the description below to book your free 15-minute score strategy call. On the next page, pick a time that works best for you, fill out 5 questions, and you'll receive a confirmation stating you're booked. We only offer a handful of these every week, and spots fill up fast, so grab yours now. On the call, we're going to discuss your 3 biggest SAT weaknesses and build you a personalized plan to improve your score. No pressure, just clarity. Book your spot now.